like the restaurant on the upper left. Have you experienced any quality management effort?
Yeah, we have a lot of training that you have to go to keep updated on certain products. I work at a restaurant,
Oh, yes.
and you just have to always go to the training meetings and things like that, so sure customer service.
That's the main restaurant in the Hilton?
It's one of the, it's it's a little cafe.
It's a cafe, okay, because I've dined in the big one for dinner, and yes, and that's excellent. That's an example of doing this in such a way that you are focusing on the customer and are trying to improve the product and service. Do you have a comment? No, okay. Now there's a whole batch of tools that are shown on table 2.1. Don't memorize those, by the way. Just note that they exist because they might come your way in where you're currently employed or employed in the future. Typically, this is attributed to the Japanese. It is often presented to folks as some sort of Japanese invention, which is really not true in the history of the development of quality management. As I said, it dates to the 20s. Then, post-World War II, the U.S. Government sent a whole batch of consultants to Japan to help them rebuild, and one of them was W. Edwards Deming. Have you ever heard of Deming? No one has heard of Deming. He's dead, but super famous. And if I were in Japan and said Deming, they would know exactly who he is from the get-go because he had done so much within Japan. All right, now let's try your vast knowledge of quality management and diversity with a film scene. And this is on page, if you have your film book, page 22 and 23. Pages 22 and 23. 1970, so when you see Jack Nicholson here, you're barely going to recognize him. He's now 71 or 72. And incidentally, to any of the women who might be interested, he wants to start a serious relationship. He thinks it's about the right time of life, whatever his life expectancy is. But he was recently interviewed and reported that he would like to do that. And Jack Nicholson, whom you will see on the screen fairly quickly, is Robert Dupea, a musician who gave up his career to go work in the oil fields and to make a bunch of money. And so he's now on his way to visit his dying father, who I think is in Oklahoma. I'm not sure. It's not important, I suppose. One of the women, there are three women, one of whom, when they're in the restaurant, the one to Nicholson's left is his partner. The two on the other side of the table are two hitchhikers that they had picked up a little bit before the scene started. Somebody's telephone just went off. Or computer. So here they're pulling up to a restaurant, and Dupea is going to order his food. Now, for those of you who work as servers, I really want to get your reaction to this incident. Now, this is 1970. You may say, nobody would do that today, or everybody does it, or whatever. But it's short. It runs about 2 to 3 minutes. So let's see how you react. Okay, that's a 1970s rendition of customer service in a restaurant. So what do you think? You would have substituted? Without any question? And what would you have done?
Probably the same.
Same? Yeah. As I said, I don't know why that scene is in the film at that particular moment. But when I found it, and a lot of people have referred to the scene in writing about cinema, it does not have any relationship to what we mean by customer service in quality management. The customer is the important moment of truth, so to speak. And now why would we want to focus on the customer? And you're my customers. You're the customers of the University of New Mexico and the Anderson School of Management. Now, I want to come back to that in a moment. But why would we want to focus? Yes, sir.
So they
Return. Re-
know other people that know the experience.
Excellent. Repeat business and word of mouth. And I tell people, if I get bad service in a situation, I make it clear to the source of the bad service that I will now talk to 8,421 people. I can do that easily with email. Have a famous list of some sort and send it out. Technology is making your jobs a little bit more difficult because of the more or less instant communication that can happen. Now, clearly this was acted out, it's fictional, etc. Have you ever had a server like the woman in that scene? Have you?
Well, I've had like bad service and then complained about it and wanted to get some sort of compensation for it and had the manager kind of come out act like that.
I'm thinking, as you were speaking, I reflected on an incident in Walmart. I chew gum from time to time, always with my mouth closed. My mother taught me that. I'm checking out, along with my wife, with a clerk who has a wad of gum in her mouth, and her mouth is going like that, while serving customers. So we spoke to the assistant manager about the incident, and he said he would take care of it. The next time going back to the same Walmart, I saw the assistant manager, and he was chewing gum like this. I'd like to avoid that Walmart. It's a little hard to do, but it's just an example of the way the person comes across. Okay. Now, I want to calibrate you guys, and then we'll come back. We'll take a break in a bit, and we'll come back and take a look at technology and international. But first, I want to know, how many of you have traveled outside the United States? Wow. Starting over here on the left, what countries? The gentleman in the red shirt, or yourself?
In Canada and Mexico.
Canada and Mexico, okay. Others, just recite the countries. Turkey?
Italy, France, England,
Germany?
Germany, Austria.
Austria? Well, Peru? Oh, cool. I've never been there, but it just sounds cool. Go ahead.
Egypt.
Okay, others? Spain? Philippines? Germany? Canada? Go ahead.
I went to Greece, Italy, and
Okay, anybody else over here?
Panama, Japan, Korea.
Sounds like you were military. It's just the naming those, I can think of the bases that are, the military assignments have this tendency to plop you about. This year, I've already gone to Mexico. I'm going to France in May, late May, Brazil in July, Austria in October, and possibly to the Czech Republic late in the year. And I'm really wondering what's going to happen after I retire when you just are able to move about. I want you to reflect on your experiences when we come back. That is, how did you adapt to it? The military situation is a little bit different because you probably lived on the base. So there's a little bit of an insulation from local culture that way.
It could be.
Yeah.
You could very easily just stay on the base, but my mom did not let us do that.